Om. Ten Commandments, Part 3, Introduction, Section 2. It is clear, therefore, that in proportion as the hypothesis of eternal progress is suffering discredit, it is being progressively realized that the fount of knowledge must be looked for in the Veda, the ancient most scripture of the human race. Even Orientalists are veering round to the view that the Veda is not the record of primitive savagery. Max Muller, who started with the idea that the Veda was a collection of the traditions of savages, had in his mature age, when Rishi Dayananda's intellectual influence considerably modified his opinion, to acknowledge that it taught the loftiest conceptions. He says in his Six Systems of Indian Philosophy that the Vedic poets had arrived at a conception of the Godhead which had only once been reached by the Christian philosophers of Alexandria, but which was even now beyond many who called themselves Christian. Not only that, but in spite of himself, he was led to exclaim in the same book that there were startling outbursts of philosophy in the Vedas, and that there always have been individuals whose mind was untrammeled by the thoughts of the great mass of the people, and who saw and proclaimed as if inspired by a power not themselves truths far beyond the reach of their fellow men. A later Orientalist, Barth, is constrained to admit the poetry it, that is the Veda, contains appears to me, on the contrary, to be of singularly refined character and artificially elaborated, full of allusions and reticences, and the manner of its expressions is such as reminds one more frequently of the phraseology in use among certain small groups of initiates than the poetic language of a large community. And these features, I am constrained to remark, are characteristics of the whole collection. Barth, quoted by Perry in his Children of the Sun. A study of the history of philosophy also tends to confirm the view that the modern most conceptions are to be found in their fully developed form in the ancient most or eternal scripture, the Veda, and in their distorted forms in the historical religions. Take the conception of the nature of matter. The latest view of matter is that ether is the sole source of all substances. Now, ether is a fluid. In the Rig Veda, we read that in the beginning of the cycle of creation, there was a vast body of fluid continuing productive force. We find the same conception slightly distorted in Homer, who says that water or ocean is the origin of all things, gods and men included. Aristophanes also speaks of the primeval deep abyss, a wondrous egg from which issued love. Athenagoras speaks of the egg formed by the union of chaos and ether, and of the operation of energy of active principle upon the eternal mass of passive matter. In the first chapter of Genesis, we are told the same thing. This very cosmological conception, namely that of eternal Akasha, gave rise to the theory of eternal Shabda, which is no other than the Veda elaborated by Jaimini. It thus appears that the Veda is the Logos which recurs so often in the philosophic traditions of the human race, and which is first mentioned in Rig Veda. It is this which Plato calls the immanent reason of the world, that existed from all time, and is the divine law upon which all human laws are paid. It is this which Anaxagoras says is intermediate between God and the world, being the regulating principle of the universe, the divine intelligence. It is this Veda which is the real Memra that, in the words of the Jewish philosopher Philo, is the teacher not only of every virtue and of all theological knowledge, but of all human arts and sciences. It is this Veda which constitutes the first spark of philosophy that, according to Archbishop Berkeley, must have been derived from heaven. It is this which constitutes the spiritual influx, in the direction of which, according to the eminent physicist and co-discoverer of evolution, Alfred Russel Wallace, all the evidence points, and which he says was analogous to that which first initiated to organize the life of the plant, then the consciousness and intelligence of the animal, and lastly reason. This eternal scripture, says the French savant Edward Squez in his Rama and Moses, has a peculiar fascination for the modern man, for it may be that the future is reserving for us a final surprise, that of discovering in the Vedas the definition of occult forces of nature, which modern science is rediscovering for us. It is this Veda which Swami Dayananda has rescued from the debris of superstition and false interpretation and restored to its pristine refulgence. The 10 principles of the Arya Samaj constitute the quintessence of the cosmopolitan and universal principles of the Veda. Pandit Chamupati has given a thought-provoking and scholarly exposition of these life-giving principles in this book, and when he requested me to write an introduction, I responded to his fraternal call with the greatest pleasure. I count it a great privilege to be associated with a distinguished protagonist and scholar in the work of spreading broadcast the ageless divine wisdom enshrined in the Veda. In the words of a great Western savant, this holy revelation, like a beautiful rock crystal, reflects the sun of eternal truth, and in the brilliant prism shine all the beams of the worldwide theosophy. Ramdev, Principal, Gurukul University, Kangdi, Hardwar. Continued.